Right, we will hopefully get this with third time's the charm. I'm very sorry it doesn't want to work. I will get through things quickly, so hopefully I can manage to talk about everything in one video. So, just a quick reminder of where I was up to. The website membership is now live. The features are down the right hand side of the video as I'm looking at it. It's on this day history calendar. I'll be adding more detailed lesson plans. You can either use them as a assembly plan or lesson plan, entirely up to you. Connecting the curriculum chronologically, geographically and conceptually, which we'll have a quick chat about as we go through this live Q&A. History disciplinary concepts, which we'll go through, and I'll show you what the cover of that looks like. And then history in the wider curriculum is the next section that I'll be adding on. Just checking that everyone can see and hear before we get started. 24 people watching, thanks for staying with me, even when it doesn't want to work. I'll quickly load up the first part and get talking through it. There we go. So, fabulous, we can actually see and hear. So, here is one of the pages that is part of the new enhanced site membership scheme. This is not going to be a sales plug at all. It is literally just the easiest way to talk you through them, and it will help me kind of recap on all of them clearly. Now, I'll go through them as they appear on here. So we've got the inquiry approach, which is not specifically a concept. That's the approach that the Historical Association and, let's be honest, all of those ones in the know advocate for, and it's not just a big question, it's a question that really encourages the further concepts that you can see there to be used and the key knowledge and skills that come from that. It's tight, it's not wishy-washy open-ended, it's something definitely to look into if you don't currently use it. Similarity and difference, not really going to spend too much time on that because it's pretty clear. That similarity and difference doesn't have to be linked to chronology, which is how it's different to continuity and change. But yeah, there you go. It's how are things similar, how are things different, and then what does it tell us? Continuity and change is a chronology-related concept. It is what stayed the same, what changed over a period of time. So when you are teaching the Stone Age to Iron Age, or changes within living memory, or if your post-1066 study is an overview, continuity and change will be a key concept to be teaching. Significance, it's how important. Why is it worth learning about? What has it told us? Why is that person or event worthy of study? It also ties nicely to history in the wider curriculum because that comes up in art, music, and also it does tie in, not specifically but pretty well, into science. Cause and consequence, sometimes known as cause and effect. Really simple one. You pick an event and you look at what caused it to happen, and then you look at what the consequences of that event were. So the easiest ones to think about may things like invasions. So the event is the invasion. What are the push and pull factors as to why they chose to invade, and what were the consequences of that? If we're talking British history, then it's very likely to be rebellion, as the Britons of the past did not like being invaded, but then again, who would? Evidence use is something you'll find across the curriculum, but in history it's vital because it really helps us share and understand how we know about the past. Now at the moment I haven't put interpretations on there because that is very definitely related to the Key Stage 3 curriculum. When we talk about historians' interpretations, we can look at how past events were portrayed from different points of view, but I haven't finalised that bit yet, which is why it's not on. If you have any questions about that, I'll leave some time at the end to answer any questions. So if you have any questions about the historical concepts, please do let me know, and I can very easily put that slide back up because it's great. So let's get concepts off. I will put video capture back on, and then hopefully I will reappear. There we go. The door closed. The door is closed behind me mostly. If you watched the first video that I did, you know the cat may appear. She's a pain in the backside, but I love her dearly. Now, looking on my list of things that I was going to talk through, threading themes. Now, this is a really interesting one. In terms of the themes that you can thread, the answer is you can thread pretty much anything, as long as there's a clear rationale and justification as to why you would do that. If it is just for a casual cross-curricular link, I would suggest that's not a great idea. So, what I would suggest very strongly is your first themes that you thread through are history's disciplinary concepts, the ones I just went through, because they fit naturally with that subject. It's really important that they're included because they are in the aims of the curriculum and therefore they have to be taught, so use them as your first port of call. Other ones that you may choose to include are things like religion. Now, please don't teach gods and goddesses and religion in a history lesson, as in the mythology of it, because it's actually an aspect of their culture. So if you want to teach the stories of them, fine, just make sure the children understand the difference between the culture, and that's what they believed in, and the mythology, because that is something that has been picked up on, and it does create a bit of confusion. Personally, the way I do that is I'd have my English revolving around the mythology, and I'd have summaries at the end, just with a quick question of, so what does that tell us about what the Greeks valued, or what does that tell us about the Egyptian belief system? Hopefully that makes sense. Other things you can thread through is think about what's important to your school ethos, your vision. If you can tie those in, it adds a really nice curriculum coherence, and it makes it really, really simple to understand how the school's vision is being implemented. I am not going to quote the 3 I's because everyone's probably sick to the back teeth of hearing that, and I will make myself quite cross doing that, as I may. Hopefully that makes sense for threading themes. Key point, you can very definitely have any theme, just think about it carefully. Why that theme? What does it tie together? Don't feel like a single theme has to tie into every single topic, because chances are it's not going to fit in some of them. If it doesn't fit, don't put it in. I feel as if that's hopefully quite self-explanatory, but it just requires a bit of careful thought. If you have any questions about those first 2 bits, please chuck them in the comments now and I'll come back to them at the end. I'll just give it a second for the on-screen version to catch up. Thank you all for bearing with me after the stream decided it wasn't going to work for the first couple of goes. I even tested it this morning, played around with all the settings, and it was great. It worked perfectly, and obviously it collapsed when I needed it most. So, 33 people watching, that's great. 35. Please do feel free to chuck anything in the comments that you want to, and I'll make sure I try and answer them. So, deciding on a focus for the history topic in question. Now, my go-to start point with that is always the national curriculum, because it is what we should be teaching. If you teach in an academy school, which obviously quite a few of you do, or free school, or one that's not required to follow the national curriculum, you have to see it as your benchmark. If you are not following it, you need to be able to explain why your curriculum is better, if not as good. That's really important to get across. If you choose not to teach something, what are you teaching instead? Why is that a good choice? Think of context, think of cultural capital, all of those delightful phrases. So when I start with the national curriculum, I look at the phrase in question. Remember, the statement is statutory, the guidance in the box underneath is not. So I'll pick one at random. So that's changes in life in prehistory. So that's from the Bronze Stone Age through to the Iron Age. The thing that jumps out to me is changes in life. So therefore, I pick up on my concept straight away. I think continuity and change, I think similarity and difference, and I think significance. So I instantly go towards that's what I'm going to harness, that's what I'm going to very consciously build towards. Then I try and turn that into an inquiry question. Get them to get the children to think beyond just oh, here's a cool lesson where we did cave paintings. It's all about knowledge, not task. What do you want them to learn? How do we get them to do it? Not what cool task can I do. That's different. It's a real shift in mindset, which I think I have mentioned before. Now, once you've got that, think of each of those lessons must contribute part of the answer. If the lesson doesn't contribute to that and answer that inquiry question, why is it there? Is it the question that needs broadening out, or is it the lesson that's just there for a different reason? Please don't think that doesn't mean we can't have fun. Fun is great. Just think very carefully about how we're categorising that. If you do golden time or reward time, however you want to call it, could that task go in there, not directly linked to the curriculum? If you teach that lesson and are tying it into that question, please make sure that it contributes something. Just at the end of the lesson, like I mentioned before, a quick summary. So what does it tell us? How does it help us understand them as a people? Chances are it will help us understand daily life or their cultural belief or an aspect of their past. And it is important that we teach those, and therefore it's really useful to make sure that we do that. Key emphasis there is read the curriculum statement. That's your guidance. Come up with the inquiry question, because history works best when it's complete as an inquiry, and then think which knowledge is going to help me answer that. Quite often I get asked, how do you know which bit to select? That is where we get the real joy and the real torment of this history curriculum. It's really important that we look at it and go, oh yeah, I could teach this, and this. My emphasis is going to be these things because I think my children need to know them. They help them understand it best. Don't be afraid to say to them, there's far more we could have talked about, but we just don't have time. And it's really useful for children to know that. Now, when it comes to linking those history topics together, that's also a useful way to think about the focus. Once you've thought about the inquiry question, once you've thought about that sequence and you've tied in your historical concept, think about which of your themes you're going to thread through and how that fits in. Before you finalise your sequence, make sure all of those things have played a part. In terms of deciding on the focus, if you've got any questions, as before, feel free to chuck them in the comments and I will happily try and answer them at the end. If you're watching this video afterwards, please do feel free to put them in and I'll respond probably as a comment or a message, depending if I need more information to help you out or not. Progression of skills documents. This is an interesting one. I'm going to just quickly differentiate between progression of skills and assessment because they are two different things that do have overlap, but it is important that we understand the difference. Progression of skills is how we know our children are getting better at the subjects. You can absolutely teach a topic-based approach. You can absolutely teach discrete subjects. Your children just need to know the difference. By that I mean there's no such subject as topic. There never has been. There probably never will be. Your topic is that overall area you're looking at. Your subjects make up how we're learning about that, and it's a clear distinction that I've started making, which seems quite useful. In terms of progression of skills documents, the Historical Association has a great one that was written, I think, 2014 by the wonderful Jamie Byram. It's free access, I believe, if you sign up as a free website member, so you can access it. That's not behind a paywall. The other good one is the Rising Stars Progression framework. The reason that is it's free, which is always a winner, and it's also really useful because it gives specific guidance about what each of the statements mean in terms of working towards meeting, and I think they use the phrase exceeding. I might be wrong on that, but it's a really good guidance. What you have to make sure you do is you have to make sure you tailor it for your school structure and your class structure. It's easier said than done to do that, but moving swiftly on to assessment, you shouldn't have an enormous, all singing, all dancing spreadsheet if it's data entry for the sake of data entry. The value of that is, to put it politely, minimal. To put it honestly, I'd call them almost worthless in most cases. All you should be looking for is the children that have gone above or need support to get to the expected standard. They're the only ones where you need notations or recording for, really, because they're the only ones that the next year's teacher needs to think, oh, I need to do something different for those. If that's the whole class for a specific area, then you'd write one general note. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm really, really against massive spreadsheets because they're not going to benefit anyone in particular. The Rising Stars Progression Framework is currently organised into phases, so that's Key Stage 1, Lower Key Stage 2 and Upper Key Stage 2. Honestly, that's the way I would do it. And the reason I do it that way is because it allows children that haven't quite made that standard in Year 3 to catch up in Year 4, and the ones that have got to the meeting standard in Year 3, they can be pushed towards exceeding. Therefore, it's easier to play the game, as it were, and prove how you are meeting the children's needs in terms of the ones that haven't made it and the ones that are already working beyond. That would benefit single form, two form and schools with mixed age classes, which is the final point that I was going to come on to talking about. Mixed age classes does present some curriculum challenges. There's no way of getting away from that. 2-year rolling programmes are easier to solve than 3 and 4 year rolling programmes, but just quickly a couple of ways that I've helped schools get around this, and the cohorts, the intakes for each of those was rather different. The first school's intake was reasonably affluent. It was just small village school, and in Key Stage 1 we came up with the suggestion of more shorter topics. So in Key Stage 1 they studied all of the curriculum objectives each year, just having different topics in which they were taught. So each year they did local history, usually tied into changes within living memory, an event beyond living memory, and then significant individuals. And that allowed them to build up quite a detailed framework between Year 1, the first year in Key Stage 1 and the second year in Key Stage 1, and it didn't matter the order that it was studied. In Key Stage 2, we had Year A was the narrative of British history. And it was really important that we maintained that narrative of British history to ensure that the children saw it in that way and could actively see how one influenced the next. So I'll have to remember this off the top of my head, but in Year A, Lower Key Stage 2, it started with local history to tie it into Key Stage 1 British history, and then in Up Key Stage 2, and then they did the Romans. Up Key Stage 2, it was the Anglo-Saxon invasion settlement. Then it was the conflict with the Vikings and the post-1066 study. In Year B, it was the Year 3-4 was Ancient Civilizations, where you teach the overview of all four first, and then pick one in depth. So that's either Egypt, Sumer, the Indus, or Shang, which is obviously China. And then in Upper Key Stage 2, they looked at the non-European studies. That's either early Islamic history, Benin, or the Maya. Think very carefully about your choice with that one. Don't just choose the Maya because it ties into geography. Think about things like cultural capital. Think about diversity, because it's really useful that we can use those. Where do we get to? Oh yeah, mixed age classes. So choose very, very carefully about which ones you are going to teach in that respect. The other approach you can do is you can do shorter topics each year groups where you study an aspect of each of the periods each year group each year, so that they over 3 and 4 will learn about the Romans twice, the Stone Age to Iron Age twice, and then that will allow you to build up that knowledge and recall back. So children in year 4 will remember the previous year, and the children in year 3 will learn about that in a different order. Hopefully that makes sense. Apologies that the video dropped out. It's typical that technology doesn't want to play ball, isn't it? I'll just give it a minute to see if anyone's got any questions. That's all right. Whoops, squeaky chair. So let's have a look. Bethany, how do you demonstrate which children are exceeding? The classic way is which children are best at maths and English, which is obviously wrong, as quite often the best historians find maths and English difficult. So if it were me, I would be taking a look at the way they interact with sources. I would be looking at, can they make links actively between what they learned in the past and what they've now learned? Do they have that drive to find out more and really unpick the past, not just taking it at face value, but really asking those deductive questions? If you want to resource about that, I would very strongly suggest the Rising Stars Progression Framework, as it does have those statements for exceeding as well as just meeting. Hopefully that all makes sense. I do apologise that the stream hasn't worked very well. That's something for me to look into, as I'm not sure whether it is a Facebook issue, an OBS issue, or whether it's my computer. As I can see it, the stream is healthy on OBS, but doesn't seem to want to connect to Facebook. So please accept my apologies for that. Do leave questions on the video either now or afterwards, and I will make sure I try and answer them. And hopefully that's been useful. Please share the video as widely as you can. Oh, questions coming in. I'll just answer those quickly. Should any of the concepts be in every lesson? Ideally, yes. You would not have all of the concepts in every lesson, but you would be looking for them as often as they fit. By that I mean, if you are teaching an aspect of the past which runs over a couple of lessons, you would have the same concept for both of those lessons. So it may very well be that concept runs through several of them, or it might be that you have one for various lessons, and that might change a bit, depends what you do. Can you recommend, suggest an assessment template? We use Tailored for Early Years to Key Stage 2. Rising Stars Progression Framework, I can't recall whether it has early years on it, but their curriculum is set up very differently to ours. Their early learning goals are also being rewritten and I think changed in September, so I wouldn't like to answer that now. and get lots of work done in preparation for it changing. The best bet for early years is to speak to the staff that are there, because they're going to be the ones who will be best placed to do that. Hopefully this video was useful. I do apologise that it flew around all over the place and the stream was a little bit volatile and didn't work. I'll just repeat what I said before. Please, by all means, do ask any questions afterwards and I'll do my utmost to answer them. Anybody that becomes a website member, don't forget there is the competition, which closes Monday the 20th at 6 PM. The first place person gets a £36 website voucher. The reason I've used those values is because it equates the pricing on the website, allows it to be easier to choose things. Second place is 24 and third place is 12. It really helps support and gives you access to a lot more content. It's being written for those people that are happy to contribute it, because it does take a lot of time to put together. Thanks a lot. Hope you are all